We thank you for your grace and your goodness. Now, God, we ask that you would bless the proceedings of this house. God, and in particular, bless our nation. We cancel every plan of the enemy over our nation. We speak blessings over our Bahama land. And God, we thank you now for Madam President and all senators. Keep them in good health. And God, give them the godly wisdom that they need as they deliberate matters concerning our nation. We bless you now, name that is above all names. And we say, Amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. God bless you all.
Thank you. Good morning, honorable senators. We will continue our order of business with the adoption of minutes.
Madam President, I beg leave to move that the minutes of our meeting of the 7th, well, the 24th of May, which would lead right up, because the Senate was suspending. It would have all the minutes of every meeting during that suspension, terminating with the meeting of yesterday, the 7th of June. So I beg you to move the minutes of Thursday, the 24th of May, 2018, and all subsequent minutes included therein be accepted by the Senate.
Is there a second?
Morning, Madam President. I rise to second.
It has been moved and seconded that the minutes be adopted as written. As many are in favor, would say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The minutes have been adopted. Motions for leave of absence, leave to resign.
None.
Swearing in of new senators.
None.
Communications by President. I'd just like to offer condolences to all the families who lost their loved ones during the recent Labor Day parade and those who suffered injuries. It is one of those events that will be ever etched in Bahamian history, as far as I'm concerned. Our thoughts and prayers are with the families and those injured at this time. I would also like to extend congratulations to the Prime Minister, Mia Mottley, and her team for the successful victory at the polls during the recent elections in Barbados. The Vice President and I had the opportunity to attend the new Parliament in Barbados, the opening of the new Parliament in Barbados on Tuesday. The speech from the throne was certainly a very ambitious agenda, but I believe for one that it can be achieved, and we wish the new administration well. While the win was historic, having won all the seats, Prime Minister Mottley is also the first female Prime Minister for Barbados. There's definitely a movement throughout the world to get more women in leadership positions, and definitely is very evident, as we've been hearing much in the United States, where they have over 300 women who have offered themselves to run in the House of Representatives, which is a historic number for the United States. And I trust moving forward that we will have more women in the Bahamas running for political office and sitting at the cabinet table. Messages from the
Madam President.
The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Carl Bethel.
Madam President, and I'm grateful that you, Madam President, would have brought to the fore the very tragic situation that affected 4 trade unionists and their families just 1 week ago today. And it now creates an appropriate opportunity for us to say a few words in which we acknowledge the horrendous nature of the events which occurred, the utter shock felt by this society, and the baleful circumstances in which it was caused to have happened. That these four ladies, celebrating the joy of labor, the power of the working person, the preeminent role played by the labor movement in the liberation of our people for decades, the role played by labor in the Quiet Revolution, the attainment of majority rule and independence. And they're there, and this tragedy should strike these ladies. It's Diane Ferguson, it's Kathleen Fernanda, it's Tabitha Hay, and Tammy Gibson. And so I would like to ask all senators, Madam President, to stand with me in a moment of silent tribute to those who fell so tragically while commemorating such great deeds. Please join me in a moment of silent tribute to those who fell. May their souls, the souls of all of the faithfully departed, through the mercies of our Lord, rest in peace. Thank you, Madam President.
Messages from the Governor General. Messages from the House of Assembly.
None. Sorry. The budget bills won't come as a message. No? Okay, thank you.
Laying of documents by ministers.
Yes. Oof, a lot of them. Let's start with the statutory instruments. Madam President, I beg leave to lay on the table of this Senate the Grand Bahama Port Area Investments, Incentives, Extension of Time Order, number 2, 2018. Contrary to the practice in the past, where for the last 2 years after the passing of this Incentives Act for Grand Bahama, the government has every 6 months given extension orders. We've determined to do it for 1 year, and hopefully in this year we can have a negotiated resolution of all matters of concern with the Port Authority so that we will determine what to do about these requirements for license holders to apply for exemptions, etc. Madam President, I also beg leave. Oh, you need to.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table.
Thank you. I beg leave to move that the City of Nassau Revitalization Extension of Time Order 2018 be laid on the table.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table.
I beg leave to lay on the table of the House the Family Islands Development Encouragement Extension of Time Order 2018.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table.
Just for the advice of the public, these are actually now into the budget bills, and these are some subsidiary orders that will have the effect of extending certain exemptions that are, to encourage development of business, etc., throughout the country, and also to impose some of the budgetary mandated increases in fees. And so on that note, I beg leave to lay on the table of the House the Tugs and Tenders Fees Amendments Order 2018.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table.
Madam President, I beg leave to move that the Customs Management Amendment Regulations 2018 be laid on the table of the House.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table.
Madam President, I beg leave to move that the Business License Amendment Regulations 2018 be laid on the table of the House.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table.
Madam President, I beg leave to move that the value-added tax amendment regulations of 2018 be laid on the table.
Order the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table.
Madam President, I beg leave to lay on the table of the House the Bahamas Nationality Amendment Regulations.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table.
Madam President, I beg leave to lay on the table of the House the Immigration Fees Amendment Regulations 2018.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table.
Madam President, I beg leave to lay on the table of the House the Police Force Fees for Services Amendment Regulations 2018.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table.
Madam President, I beg leave to lay on the table of the House the Gaming House Operator Amendment Regulations 2018.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table.
And you can table these. Okay. Madam President, second. I beg leave to lay on the table of the House the Ship and Ports Facility Security Amendment Regulations 2018.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table.
Madam President, I beg leave to lay on the table of the House the Price Control General Amendment Number 2, Regulations 2018.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table.
Quincy.
Further laying of documents by ministers.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Madam President, I beg leave to lay on the table of the Senate the Bank of the Bahamas Limited Annual Report of 2017.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table.
Madam President, I beg leave to lay on the table of the Senate the 2017 Annual Report and Statement of Accounts for the Central Bank of the Bahamas.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table. Further laying of documents by ministers.
Madam President, I beg leave to lay on the table of the Senate the 2018-2019 budget communication.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table.
Madam President, I beg leave to lay on the table of this House, Senate, the draft estimates of revenue and expenditure 2018-2019.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table.
And now, Madam President, we come to the budget bills themselves. And the first is a rather weighty one. It's the tariff bill, which I beg leave to lay on the table of the House of 2018, the tariff bill 2018.
You shouldn't lay these first. You have to do first reading.
First reading? Is it? Yeah, it's a bill. Yeah, okay. We got to wait later. Okay. What about these? Okay, we wait. Next item. Okay, thanks.
Communications by ministers. Communications by senators. Questions. Answers to questions. Presentations of petitions. Appointment of select committees. Reports of committees. First reading of bills.
Okay.
Here we go.
All right, here we go. Madam President, I beg to move for the first reading of the tariff bill 2018. Revenue account.
Is there a second?
Huh? Yeah. I saw the revenue account. We're going to end up on that.
No,
I
stop.
figured instead of start with the big one, I would end with these. Better start with these? Okay.
Do you have them in order? This order?
I have the appropriation capital development, and I have the appropriation revenue account. I need, yeah, that's it, eh? Just these two, capital and revenue. Yeah, okay. No, that's, let me see. Yeah, we're just starting with the, yeah, you have to.
But you got to read the long title.
Yeah,
But all of the, he doesn't have that.
Yes, you got to read the long
Okay, well, you need to talk.
yeah, okay. Madam President, I beg leave to move for the first reading of a bill for an act for the appropriation of divers sums of money for towards defraying the expenses of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas on revenue account for the fiscal year commencing 1st July 2018 and ending 30th of June 2019. If I may obtain a seconder.
Rise to second.
Yeah, that's it.
It has been moved and seconded that a bill for an act for the appropriation of diverse sums of money for and towards defraying the expenses of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas on revenue account for the financial year commencing 1st July 2018 and ending June 30th, 2019 be read a first time. As many are in favor, should say aye. It seems like we're a bit distracted, I'll ask. As many are in favor, should say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed would say nay. The ayes have it. Order that the bill be read a first time. Further first reading of bills.
Thank you. Madam President, I beg leave to move for the first reading of a bill for an act for the appropriation of the sum of $299,319,008 for and towards defraying the expenses of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas for capital development for the financial year ending 30th June 2019. If I may obtain a seconder.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that a bill for an act for the appropriation of the sum of $299,319,008 for and towards defraying the expenses of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas for capital development for the financial year ending 30th of June 2019. As many are in favor should say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Order that the bill be read a first time. Should you have signed this? Should you have signed this? No? Yeah. 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 Further first readings.
Now we get to the reheat tariff bill. Madam President, I beg leave to move for the first reading of a bill for an act to make new provisions for the imposition and collection of customs duties and to give effect to the harmonized system of tariff and for connected purposes. 2018.
Is there a second?
Rise to second.
It has been moved and seconded that a bill for an act to make new provisions for the imposition and collection of customs duties and to give effect to the harmonized system of tariff and for connected purposes be read a first time. All those in favor would say aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Order that the bill be read a first time. For the first reading.
Madam President, I beg leave to move for the first reading of a bill for an act to amend the Real Property Act, 2018. Tax. Let me read what it says. Pardon me. First reading of a bill for an act to amend the Real Property Tax Act, 2018.
Is there a second?
I rise to second, Madam President.
It has been moved and seconded that a bill for an act to amend the Real Property Tax Act be read a first time. As many are in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Ordered that the bill be read a first time. For the first readings,
Madam President, I beg leave to move for the first reading of a bill for an act to amend the Industrial Relations Act.
is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that a bill for an act to amend the Industrial Relations Act be read a first time. All those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Ordered that the bill be read a first time. For the first readings,
Madam President, I beg leave to move for the first reading of a bill for an act to amend the Business License Act. I just note that there is a typo, but this will be corrected by the law reform in their exercise of the power under the Interpretations Act to make textual amendments for spelling errors.
is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that a bill for an act to amend the Business License Act be read a first time. All those in favor would say aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Order that the bill be read a first time. For the first readings,
Madam President, I beg leave to move for the first reading of a bill for an act to amend the Customs Management Act 2018.
is there a second?
I rise to second.
It has been moved and seconded that a bill for an act to amend the Customs Management Act be read a first time. As many are in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Ordered that the bill be read a first time. For the first readings,
Yes. Madam President, I beg leave to move for the first reading of a bill for an act to amend the Financial Administration and Audit Act. You hear, Madam President?
is there a second?
I rise to second.
It has been moved and seconded that a bill for an act to amend the Financial Administration and Audit Act be read a first time. All those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Order that the bill be read a first time. For the first readings,
Madam President, I beg leave to move for the first reading of a bill for an act to amend the Stamp Act.
is there a second?
Second, Madam President.
And it has been moved and seconded that a bill for an act to amend the Stamp Act be read a first time. All those in favor would say aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Order that the bill is read a first time. For the first readings,
Madam President, I beg leave to move for the first reading of a bill for an act to provide for the imposition and collection of excise taxes and for connected purposes.
is there a second?
I rise to second.
It has been moved and seconded that a bill for an act to provide for the imposition and collection of excise taxes and for connected purposes be read a first time. All those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Ordered that the bill is read a first time.
Bill for an act to provide for the imposition and collection of excise taxes and for connected purposes.
For the first readings,
Thank you, Madam President. I beg leave to move for the first reading of a bill for an act to amend the Police Force Act.
is there a second?
I rise to second.
It has been moved and seconded that a bill for an act to amend the Police Force Act be read a first time. All those in favor would say aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Ordered that the bill be read a first time.
Bill for an act to amend the Police Force Act.
For the first readings,
Madam President, I beg leave to move for the first reading of a bill for an act to amend the Port Authorities Act.
I rise to second, Madam President.
Thank you.
it has been moved and seconded that a bill for an act to amend the Port Authorities Act be read a first time. All those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Order that the bill be read a first time.
Bill for an act to amend Port Authorities Act.
Further first readings?
Madam President, I beg leave to move for the first reading of a bill for an act to amend the Harbor Dues Act. If I may obtain a seconder.
I rise to second.
It has been moved and seconded that a bill for an act to amend the Harbor Dues Act be read a first time. All those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Order that the bill be read a first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Harbor Dues Act.
Further first readings?
Madam President, I beg leave to move for the first reading of a bill for an act to amend the Road Traffic Act.
I rise to second.
It has been moved and seconded that a bill for an act to amend the Road Traffic Act be read a first time. As many are in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Order that the bill be read a first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Road Traffic Act.
Further first readings?
Madam President, I beg leave to move for the first reading of a bill for an act to amend the Value Added Tax Act. If I may obtain a seconder.
I rise to second.
It has been moved and seconded that a bill for an act to amend the Value Added Tax Act be read a first time. As many are in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Order that the bill be read a first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Value Added Tax Act.
Further first readings?
No further first readings, Madam President.
Second reading and committal of bills?
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, today, a notice having been given at the last sitting of the Senate that today we would be moving to second reading and committal of the Access to Affordable Homes Bill and the Electricity Amendment Number 2 Bill. Once we finish second reading and committal, we would go through the committal stages of both these two bills. Thank you. And also the Multinational Enterprises Financial Reporting Bill, which was put into the committee stage at the last meeting on the 7th of June. No, it wasn't 7th of June. It would have been the meeting before that. 28th of May, I believe it was. 28th of May. And once that is done, all of the bills will be moved to third reading and passage today. So, on that note, I think we've agreed that we'll debate both of these bills together. They are similar. One is housing, one is the supply of a necessary service to housing, electricity. And so, and so on that note, I stand, Madam President, to move for the second reading and committal of the Access to Affordable Homes Bill 2018, the long title of which is a bill for an act to promote greater access to affordable homes through the grant of certain exemptions for the building of dwelling homes on service lots within a government-owned subdivision. Madam President, let me say that successive governments since independence have invested heavily in creating the necessary framework for the improvement of the lives of thousands of ordinary Bahamians through the provision of access to affordable government homes. Starting really with the attainment of majority rule, when the Yellow Elder Garden subdivision, which had been started by the former minority government but was completed by the newly majority-led government in the late 60s and early 70s, the Yellow Elder Garden subdivision. At that time, in those early days, homes are being constructed in a circular design, round homes. I guess for some reason that was thought to be the most efficient way to construct homes, but later that was phased out. Maybe it's a little disorienting to be living in the middle of a circle. But through the decades, we've seen the development of specific government-owned affordable subdivisions. So we can think of areas such as Elizabeth Estates. We can think, certainly during the 1990s, this program intensified. Going from really 1992, well, in 86 to 84, you had the development of the Elizabeth Estates subdivision, which was a new concept, I think, where building on the Yellow Elder model, a vast tract of land was converted and made into a major government development. It was opened by the Queen when she visited, I think it was in 84 or 85 it would have been, when they had the Chogum, no, it was 84, when they had the Chogum summit here. In any event, this model has continued. But what we found is that there have been all too often complaints about shoddy construction, poor workmanship conducted by the contractors engaged by the government. So in the last Ingram administration, before 2002, the loss in 2002, he had a concept of developing a subdivision in the island of Abaco, in the Marsh Harbor area, where all that would happen was that the government would create the subdivision, provide all of the services to vacant lots, and allow persons to purchase the raw land as serviced lots and build their homes. And so I think this Tall Pines subdivision outside of Marsh Harbor has grown into a substantial community where the only investment of the government was in developing the land, grading it out, putting in the services, the roads and utilities. They sold the land at cost, which was the development cost, the government did. And persons then just basically, boom, given that opportunity, developed the vast majority of the lots into quite a beautiful subdivision. And the one thing it eliminated was a lot of calls on the government to fix shoddy construction work, because in a sense it was the responsibility of the homeowner and their contracted contractor they were in direct contract with each other, and therefore the chances of shoddy workmanship going, in a sense, covered up and land being sold to somebody else were greatly minimized, and a lot of these errors in terms of bad workmanship were eliminated. And so coming forward, we find that there were several other subdivisions developed in the interregnum, and these problems of shoddy workmanship continued. This bill arose because the present Prime Minister basically said that there were several lots, particularly in the Lionel Davis subdivision. There are about 10 lots in the Fox Hill area that had all the services to them, and the question was whether or not we would build on them, go down the same road, or whether we would, well, the Prime Minister brought it to the table, let's sell them as service lots. And it was indicated that there's another subdivision on the other end of the island with another 10 or so lots, and then there's a larger development in Carmichael Road area with some 300 lots of land. And then the Prime Minister indicated that he wanted to have this power, if you will, authority for the government to do this on a small scale throughout the Bahamas, not just in major subdivisions. That really was the genesis. That discussion around the table, if you will, was the genesis of this bill. This bill is designed to be a flexible mechanism by which the government, on either a large or a small scale, is able to designate government-owned land in a, let's say, a particular settlement. or in an area that requires expansion. So, for example, if one would think just going like towards Morstown, there was an area called Redland, where a former government built maybe 10 or so houses, but it was an area that could be developed, and was developed in Exuma. And so similarly, on a small scale, that the government could subdivide land, provide all necessary services, and make the land available to your average Bahamian at an affordable price. Give them a bankable asset that they can go to the bank, obtain a construction loan, engage and go through the usual process. And if you're going to borrow the bank's money, they're going to require 3 quotes. They're going to do their own due diligence to ensure that you get a contractor that has a good record. So these are the sorts of things that can occur. And with such a structure where land is acquired at an affordable rate and is then able to become a marketable asset to go to a bank, to get a construction loan mortgage, and in a reasonable period of time to construct a dwelling home thereon, on the land, it's a way to quickly enrich, if you will, put in the hands of ordinary Bahamians the building blocks of real wealth, land. And so this bill was crafted to be a flexible mechanism to empower Bahamians. So the 10 lots in the Lionel Davis subdivision are earmarked now that we will seek to have a broad range of persons. Police officers have the opportunity, Defense Force officers to have the opportunity, nurses, teachers. You know, you have thousands and thousands of young Bahamians playing vital roles in the public service or in other government agencies who deserve a helping hand, who deserve to be empowered. This bill is a practical, flexible, non-bureaucratic way in which hundreds, if not thousands, of young Bahamians throughout the length and breadth of this country will be able to receive tangible, real government economic empowerment by having the ability to buy land at an affordable price, land ready for development, by giving them an asset that they can go to the bank and build a tangible asset, a home for themselves and their loved ones. That's the essence of what this bill is seeking in an imaginative new way to do. And to be able to do it, as I said, on a large scale, in a 300 lot development, for example, where maybe 10% can be done that way, because, you know, there's still an advantage to government, how should we say, priming the pumps of the economy by providing a certain amount of contracts to contractors who themselves can employ people. So it's not as if every government subdivision is suddenly going to become only governed by this act. No. But when you're doing a 300 lot subdivision off Carmichael Road, 20 or 30 of those could easily be used under this framework, while at the same time achieving the objective of giving a number of independent contractors fixed remuneration, building homes for the other remaining portions of the subdivision. These are the ideas to have a balanced approach towards both individual development and national development. So how does this bill work? This bill is designed, as I said, to be flexible. It allows the Minister of Finance, and of course it would be in consultation with the Minister of Housing. We had to juggle as to who should be the responsible minister. It was determined to be the Minister of Finance because essentially the bill is concerned with a financial construct. Affordable land that has services appendant to it, given at cost, sold at cost to the purchaser, who then gets a whole host of exemptions in addition to just getting land at cost, developed land at its cost, they get a host of other benefits that are directly tied to the operation of the Minister of Finance. So it was determined that the appropriate minister should be the Minister of Finance. Because this act goes very far. Oh, and I'll say one thing too. You know, we say that the land is going to be sold at cost, right? But our goal is to keep it under $30,000. So even if the cost of servicing the lot by putting all the infrastructure in exceeds $30,000 per lot, it's not likely to go above $30,000. It's a rough thing. We get advice from, of course, the Minister of Housing, and we see the cost, and then it's determined really what it's going to be. And in the case of Lionel Davis, certainly the cost is well below $30,000 per lot. Okay? But the idea is to sell at cost, but of course there's some subsidy. The government will sometimes swallow some of the costs to keep the lots within the affordable range of the target audience, to young Bahamians starting out their lives, seeking to get a piece of the rock, if you will, to get a start. And this is what the bill is aimed at. Very quickly now, once the minister designates the subdivision, and remember, a subdivision could be no more than 2 lots. The minister could determine, in consultation with the Minister for Crown Lands, that Crown Land will make available to the minister as much as a piece of land that could be cut into 2 lots. Well, that's a subdivision. Any change in the configuration of an existing piece of land is a subdivision of it if you divide it into more than 1 parcel. So it can go down as low as 2. I'm talking about subdividing land. I'm not dealing with Subdivision Act. I'm not dealing with the question of subdivision approvals. I'm dealing with, if you get a tract of land and you cut it into 2 lots, that's a subdivision of the land. That is a change in the actual severance of the land, if you will, or whatever. It is a subdividing of an existing lot into 2 or more lots. I'm not worried about the definition of what is 10 or more or whatever lots it is, how far it is from the road. Those are legalisms that don't need to concern us, because we're dealing with the power of the minister in consultation with the Minister of Finance, the minister responsible for Crown Land, in consultation with the Minister of Finance, to determine that as little as 2 lots could be made available. Okay, and therefore, read the definition of subdivision in the bill, Senator Darville. A subdivision means a subdivision consisting of service lots, period. Okay? So, it could be as little as 2 lots. Once that is done, and so think about how this could work in many family islands, where, you know, you may have several, but maybe only a handful of persons that have the kind of government job that can afford something, and the government can begin a phased program. So that's the point. It can go throughout the Bahamas, in every island, and also in the major urban parts. Once the subdivision is designated as such by a notice published in the Gazette by the Finance Minister, he may then designate the individual lots as service lots. When the Minister of Finance is satisfied that all that is done, the actual owner of the lot who's bought it can make application to the minister and get tax exemption on customs duty and excise taxes on all construction materials, either imported or, after the amendments are done in committee, as were done in the House, purchased locally. So if they go down to Kelly's Lumber would have to deduct from the price of the lumber sold, or if they go to JBR or anywhere else for any other, all of the other companies, or to Hannah's Plumbing, to get the plumbing supplies, the cement blocks, the wood, the windows, everything else, you subtract the landed costs from it and only sell. So all of the taxes, the customs duties and excise taxes that would have been charged on entry are subtracted from the price, and they get the reduced price for the building materials. Okay? Now, VAT is not included in this, okay? This deals with excise tax and stamp duty exemptions. Now, the lot owners have a period of 2 years from the time that they purchase the lot to build a single-family dwelling home. This is the problem in Abaco, is that when the subdivision was approved, although it was intended to be single-family subdivision, the conveyances when drawn did not include restrictive covenants. And so although the announced intention of the government was that they would be single-family homes throughout, because there were no restrictive covenants, people built duplexes, triplexes, quadruplexes, etc. So a number of the properties, and it has caused, in some disputes, we had to say, look, there's nothing, we were asked our advice, and we had to advise that there were no restrictive covenants in the conveyances. So people could basically build, they could have built a movie theater there, had they wished, even though it was announced and zoned as a residential area. Well, no, they couldn't actually, but they, because it's residential, that included building duplexes and triplexes, although they are technically in law commercial properties. They are, but you know, the zoning evidently wasn't, nothing was done, and it was a Wild West. So this bill makes it very clear you can only build a single-family dwelling home on the lot. So makes it clear it's intended for families, it's intended as homes, not apartment units. If a person has gone so far but they can't quite finish in the 2-year period, they can apply to the minister for a further year's extension. Well, those would be covered by the law, and that the law, as stated, would enforce the zoning of the area, okay? So people would be prevented. Now, there are the usual offenses for anyone who gets lumber or building materials under the Act and goes and sells them, etc., and the attempts to regulate it and prevent it from being abused, and the minister has power to make regulations. I want to point out something, and it's not intended to be discriminatory, but it's intended to indicate a broad policy. You know, the first charge on the government is the interest of Bahamians. And so one of the amendment to this bill makes it pellucidly clear, as one of my colleagues at the bar loves to say, pellucidly clear, very, I mean, in other words, clearly clear, that when you're applying, the first thing we're looking for is a Bahamian passport. Okay? That is not to say that a Bahamian married to non-Bahamian can't apply. It's just that we want to see that Bahamian passport from one of the applicants. Okay? If they are married. If they're not married, then only the Bahamian can apply. You follow me? But we want to see a Bahamian passport. So we don't just want National Insurance Board identification, as the initial draft states, because anybody gets that. Every foreign banker gets a national insurance number. Every worker in the Bahamas, even on a temporary permit, they have to get a national insurance number, right, as soon as they collect a salary. And a driver's license, of course, anybody gets. So we want to see a Bahamian passport. Madam President, those are the only real comments, simply to say that this bill is a serious attempt by the government to reach out to young Bahamians, particularly to help to get them on their feet. It's a real way to place the most important building block of wealth in the hands of ordinary Bahamians, land. And we trust that it will receive wide support in the public and the support of our colleagues opposite. The Electricity Amendment Bill number 2 is simply, but I've indicated that there are amendments were made below, and we will have to move the amendments here because of the budget problems with over 20 bills and everything else. Law Reform just didn't have time to prepare a consolidated bill of the changes made in the House. We'll be moving the amendments No, some responsibility, okay? As I said, we have a balance between, we had a bit of a balance, to strike, okay? And, yeah, where the minister is satisfied, the minister should grant approval, etc. So you may see, some insertion of the Minister of Housing's name or etc. in here, okay? But essentially, it's still a finance bill, okay? The Electricity Amendment Bill really sets out, it is merely only to allow BEC to restructure its existing debt. Let me just quickly explain to the Bahamian people. In 2015, the then government determined that they would go on a course of action of dividing functions hitherto performed by the electricity company BEC in order to try and attract a partner to come and run BEC on more commercially aggressive terms, to run it as a business unencumbered by the legacy of the debt of the old BEC. So the Electricity Act was passed, trying to chart a new course. And I commend the government for the former government for what they were trying to do. I think that the vendor they ultimately settled on was a great disappointment to all of us, the Power Secure Group. But the concept of separating the going concern from its legacy of debt and bad management is a powerful one, which this government has embraced and is continuing to do. And under the Electricity Act, the requirements for the new going concern to focus on the development of alternative sources of energy and renewables is vitally important. Vitally important. So what we have today is a bill, though, that corrects an imperfection in the 2015 Bill Act that was passed, in that it treated the legacy debt as really a static thing. Whereas because of the operational problems that we met from the Power Secure people and the state of the finances of BPL, it's necessary for BEC to rewrite its existing indebtedness, in the sense that a lot of equity has been paid off, and so within the boundaries of the borrowings, that a part of which have been paid off, to rewrite those loans so as to create some capital that is able to be used for the further development of BPL in terms of some urgent needs, in terms of generational capacity, in terms of maintenance of the infrastructure, etc. And so this bill is making it pellucidly clear, clearly clear, that BEC has the power to borrow, notwithstanding the moving of the certain functions to BPL, Bahamas Power and Light, Bahamas Power and Light, as the new company is called. And so we enjoin and urge our colleagues opposite to support the bill, and it will allow BEC to play a meaningful role in assisting Bahamas Power and Light in improving the services it offers to the Bahamian public by enabling them to do necessary improvements and overhauls to their existing infrastructure, and giving them a little bit of flexibility that will enable them to get through these tough times as they seek to transition from the old way of generating power to newer and more cost-effective ways of generating power that will ultimately reduce the cost of electricity for every Bahamian, and particularly for the business sector as well. So on those notes, Madam President, I move for the second reading and committal of both of these bills.
Is there a second? The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Jasmine Darius.
Good morning, Madam President. Today I rise to humbly thank God for yet another opportunity to speak to the issues that affect my country and towards legislation being coined and amended to better the lives of all Bahamians in this nation. Before I get into that, I would like to also, in addition to the condolences, extend congratulations to athletes, Mr. Stephen Gardner and Shawnee Miller-Weibo, who continue to set new records for us athletically, and we want them to know that we are proud of you. And this also sends a message to all of the children, not just on the major islands, but the family of islands, that you can be great, and you too can set a name for yourself. One of the purposes of our government is to establish justice, to ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote and to promote general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Madam President, with that being said, we are here today to specifically amend Section 8 of the Principal Act of the Electricity Amendment Bill 2018 to expressly empower the corporation BEC to borrow by way of overdraft or otherwise, and provide security for such borrowing sums as it may require for meeting its obligations for BPL to discharge the functions under Section 9, and to also clarify and make certain that the corporation retain its power to enter into contracts and carry out its functions efficiently. Madam President, the Bahamas government believes in the family structure, and we believe that every family should have the opportunity of a decent home which they can afford. Madam President, additionally, one of the primary functions of the government is to provide its citizenry with education, housing, food, and safety. To this end, the Access of Affordable Homes Bill 2018 amendment is presented, which is a bill for an act to promote greater access to affordable homes through the grant of certain exemptions for the building of dwelling homes on services lots within a government-owned subdivision. This act seeks to make affordable more accessible by exemptions on building materials for the dwelling homes, to designate service lots owned by government for exemption on building materials used for a single-family dwelling, and to provide for the granting of certain exemptions for these designated lots. Persons are able to make application who are desirous of constructing a single-family home using a Bahamian passport. The approval of this provision grants the applicant eligibility to enjoy exemption from customs duties and excise tax in respect of all import materials necessary for the construction of the home. This home is said to be completed, should be completed within 2 years of the date approved. However, if there are delays, for we live in a hurricane belt, if there are delays or some natural disaster or catastrophe, persons may apply to the minister in writing, the designated minister in writing, for an extension of the time granted. No materials imported in the Bahamas with the benefit of tax exemption should be used for any other purpose as outlined in the application. These materials should not be sold, given away, or disposed of unless the Minister of Finance or the designated minister gives approval in writing. And failure to comply with this act or regulation by having false signatures, false statements, or representation will be an offense that's punishable by twice the value of concessions and or imprisonment not exceeding 6 months. I want to also say to the citizenry of the Bahamas that June 1st marks the beginning of the hurricane season. We have 14 identified storms. 7 of them were named hurricanes, and 3 are expected to be over Category 3. So we want to also admonish you during this time to begin to stock up on your food supplies and put them in a high place. Do not wait on a meteorologist to give us 72 hours or 36 hours before we begin to stock up. You want to begin to make the necessary purchases to secure your home and to secure your family now. Madam President, with that being said, I support both bills today, and may God bless the Bahamas.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a second time and committed. A bill for an act to promote greater access to affordable homes through the grant of certain exemptions for the building of dwelling homes on serviced lots within a government-owned subdivision. As many? The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Fred Mitchell.
No, I don't. No, I don't. Thank you very much. I don't think either of them. Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to explain that I have to leave shortly because of the L.W. Young prize giving this morning. But I did want to, and my colleagues will speak at some length or greater length about our position on the bill, but I did want to mention what I'd said across the table to the Honorable Minister and Leader for the Government for the record. He mentioned in his intervention that the land, which is now to be called the Lionel Davis subdivision or estate, is to be part of the government's scheme for this legislation. Fine, there's no issue per se with that, but I did want to say that in the other place, the government had announced as a policy that this land was supposed to be given, the first crack of the land was supposed to be for the uniformed services, and a list was gathered. I think the police, the defense force, customs, immigration, nurses, and teachers. What I said across the floor, and this doesn't necessarily cross what he's saying, but I wanted to make this point. This land was part of a set of conveyances or public acquisitions that George Mackey did way back in 1990 or thereabouts. The Sugarman Estate was one of them, where the community center is another. The land for the Eastwood Park is another set of acquisitions. And this 5-acre plot at the corner of Armbruster Street and Roma Street. I'm saying this because land is a very, very touchy subject in Fox Hill. And you know the issues which arose with the Sugarman Estate, where people, because no development took place, people had been traditionally farming the land. Ultimately, through successive governments, beginning with Neville Wisdom, and then through Ken Russell, and then finally Ken Dorset, we were able to settle those people who had been in actual possession of the land, got their conveyances to the property at very reasonable rates. So now looking at this acreage, you can imagine that people think that, well, okay, people from Fox Hill should get the first crack at this land. So it was once the then Minister of Housing asked, well, what should the subdivision be named? There was nothing named in honor of Lionel Davis, who was in fact the first Member of Parliament for Fox Hill. He was Carlton Francis's general. It was part of Winton, and then when Winton became Fox Hill in '68, Lionel Davis became the first man. So we figured it was a good thing to do in honor of Lionel Davis. But the point I'm making is I'm certain that people from Fox Hill looking on will say we should have the first crack at it, and it is a village. It has maintained its integrity, and so I would just plant that suggestion in your head that if there are teachers, soldiers, police officers, nurses, so on and so forth, who are from Fox Hill, that they get the first crack on the land. And that's the point I'd like to make. So, thank you very much, and I'm off to my graduation.
Without writing a check, the government wouldn't wish to cash. I'd simply say that is, it sounds like a very reasonable suggestion. I'm sure the government will look into it and see what we can do to achieve it.
Grateful, sir.
I guess at this point, I'd just like to say that many of the senators are out today, but they have advised the chair of their absence due to personal or professional commitments. And so I'd want the minutes to reflect their absence with notice. As many, the chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Michael Darville.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Madam President. Like the leader on our side officer said, I don't intend to be long concerning these two bills, but I would like to join the leader of opposition business on the other side in extending our deepest condolences. Government business, I'm sorry. Is that a prophecy? My colleagues, in offering my condolences to the 4 individuals who lost their lives during the labor celebrations here on New Providence. It's very sad. The circumstances behind it, I'm sure, is being worked out, and the families need to know that all of us, I think, have them in our prayers and support them in this difficult time. But Madam President, it's indeed an honor and a privilege to rise once again in this honorable place to make my brief contribution to both the Affordable House Bill and the Electricity Amendment Number 2 Bill 2018. Let me say from the onset that we on this side opposite support the bills in principle, and because they would have significant impact in the lives of Bahamians throughout the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Firstly, Madam President, the Electricity Amendment Bill seeks to empower BEC, an ailing public corporation, to borrow by way of overdraft or otherwise and provide security to meet its obligations, or for BPL to discharge its function under Section 9 of the Electricity Act. We on this side, who have served in Cabinet before, understand very well the financial challenges that the corporation is facing and know about the existing debt at BEC. Our last administration met this debt in place, and much of what we did to try to restructure the company to address most of the outstanding debt. Most of it is basically fuel bills. Nonetheless, we completed the restructuring exercises at BEC and worked hard to ensure that the corporation had a better management team in place. In fact, the implementation of BPL business plan introduced effective ways to reduce the legacy debt plaguing the corporation for years. Madam President, we also learned that in the wake of the union negotiations, BPL embarked in an excess of about $20 million to pay out more than about 300 employees who have expressed interest in voluntary packages. There's still much more work to be done at the corporation, and we are calling on the government to be very transparent in these matters concerning what is happening at BEC and what BPL is doing. If they are looking for the opposition support in their efforts through the restructuring exercise that must take place at the corporation. Madam President, as it relates to the issues of rising fuel costs, there has been a lengthy discussion in the past, and we need to go back into discussion again with BPL to begin this necessary process of fuel hedging in order to cap the rising cost of fuel and reduce the fuel surcharge that is ultimately passed on to the customer. The Grand Bahama Power Company and its regulator, the Grand Bahama Port Authority, we went through this exercise when we were in government, and we came up with a restructuring cost factor whereby the whole concept of fuel hedging was used, and we were able to keep the fuel surcharge at a steady rate. I'm sure that will come back to very shortly because the agreement is, huh? Oh, yeah, well, you know, it's no problem, but yeah, it's always them. But the reality is we were really at the table as well. Madam President, the proposed 200 kilowatt per month consumption and the possible VAT exemption is something that was also discussed when we were negotiating this whole concept of trying to fix the fuel surcharge. And we look forward to seeing some important changes take place at the corporation so that finally the government and the country can get a grip on this issue with BEC and these rising costs that ultimately comes back to the government, who are the ones who have to ensure that we guarantee these loans in order for the corporation to function and to provide reliable service of electricity to the residents in New Providence and the Family Islands. But today I really want to spend a little bit of time on the Affordable Housing Bill 2018 because during the campaign leading up to the 2012 general election, I was afforded the opportunity to tour the island of Grand Bahama from east to west, visit homes, schools, and public spaces, and my heart was saddened by the state of what I saw the island was in. At that particular time, the cost of fuel was escalating because of the fuel surcharge. And yes, we were in a crisis where a lot of people were losing their homes and a lot of foreclosures. I met parents in the inner city communities who were struggling to make ends meet. I spoke with persons who had to choose about paying medical bills rather than keeping the roof over their head. I met people who had to decide between missing a monthly payment on their mortgage or putting groceries on the table or even paying their power bills. I also came across persons who had to choose between paying their children's school fee or paying the mortgage. Subsequently, as a result of that, many people went into foreclosure. Worse, Madam President. And in some rare cases, I saw circumstances where people were forced to live in their vehicles, on beaches and other public spaces. Sad to say, these issues are again rising on the island of Grand Bahama and some of our other family islands. In the wake of Hurricane Matthew and the destruction of many privately owned rental units who are still abandoned, and these individuals, because they were not able to claim as a result of Hurricane Matthew, because they're commercial spaces, a lot of these buildings are unoccupied, and there is very limited rental spaces on the island of Grand Bahama, and that has to do with the economy itself. Madam President, against this backdrop, coupled with the high unemployment rate and the proposed taxes and fees, we in the Progressive Liberal Party determined that we would make a priority. We'll make it our priority to keep this administration feet to the fire so that Grand Bahama can get what it truly deserves and to get its piece of the pie from the government asset. Mr. Speaker, in coming to office in 2012, we were aware of the social and economic challenges facing the island and the fact that homeowners were struggling like never before. In our charter of governance, we realized that it was our responsibility to come up with a plan to bring some sort of relief in the mortgage relief plan that we introduced. And in our last term of office, through the Ministry of Housing, the PLP government constructed hundreds of homes and planned to build many more if we were given the opportunity to govern once again. Madam President, in March 2017, we presented the Homeowners Protection Bill that was later passed, and this demonstrated our commitment to fulfilling our promise to help distressed homeowners, in which the majority of the problems that they were facing was loss of jobs due to the tough economic times. I am pleased to lend my support to this affordable... Huh? It was passed. It was passed. Yeah. Yes, but it was... I'm pleased to lend my support... Yeah? No, but we did our first... No, we are speaking about where we were heading and what we were trying to do. Of course, there's no question about it. And as a result of it, we are no longer in government, but our plans, and the reason why I'm bringing it up, because we're expecting the government to do something more than just the Affordable Homes Bill, but to look at those individuals who are presently in foreclosure and do something for them as well, because there's a large group of individuals doing that. That's what I'm saying. That's the point I'm trying to make. It is my understanding that it seeks to promote a greater access to affordable homes. We on this side will support any piece of legislation that would improve the lives of Bahamians. And we will continue to do it, and we will continue to agitate for more legislation similar to this one that will bring relief and give Bahamians the opportunities to own a home. One of the things that I realized, though, in one of the communications from the Prime Minister, he indicated that he intended to extend the bill, particularly on the family islands, to incorporate second homeowners. It said second homeowners, which means that Bahamians who are of a family island descent, who have a home in Nassau, can also benefit, and I hope this is the case. Yeah, second homes in some of us who... No, well, I understand that, but I mean in the way it was... I understand that, but the way how the bill is worded, these are additional information that came out of the Prime Minister's presentation that is not incorporated in the bill. And I say I encourage it. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying encourage it because it spoke about boutique resorts in the family islands, which has a commercial. Fine, no problem. I encourage the government to bring more legislation similar to this one because it will bring relief to the family. It will bring potential business opportunities back to the family islands and create an economy that is so necessary in many of our family islands. Nevertheless, Madam President, I believe that the government should go even further in providing assistance for the less fortunate. The Minister of Housing under our last administration came up with a plan to use alternative materials to try to build dwellings at a lower cost that will definitely give another group of individuals who may not be able to qualify for the lots that are available to find a way to give them an opportunity to be a homeowner as well, that they will be able to have access to the lot and to be able to construct dwellings using alternative materials at a lower cost that may not meet the necessary requirements for the subdivisions that you have in mind. Madam President, although I support the bill in principle, I find the bill to be very vague and difficult to fully understand the government's full plan. I believe that as you begin to implement it, you should become more transparent so that individuals could get a better understanding of the entire process, not the fact that there is duty-free concessions for those who have the lots, but also to be able to tell us exactly how you intend to distribute the lots. In one instance, the bill seemingly shifts the responsibility of the Ministry of Housing to the Minister of Finance. And I think your amendment attempt to clarify this aspect in the bill, thus creating the impression that the Ministry of Housing will have a more hands-off approach of vertical construction and will focus only on subdivision planning and capital works. I believe that the Ministry of Housing should also play an integral part in vertical construction because there's a group of individuals who will have to utilize the mortgage corporation and to be able to have a turnkey operation, which is still very important in the housing industry. I know you spoke about the fact that shoddy construction happens whether it's in the individual responsibility or the Ministry of Housing. Shoddy construction follows everybody, and it is the responsibility of the inspectors who are part of the Ministry of Works to do their due diligence to make sure that before the next drawdown takes place, the quality of the construction meet the codes of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. We see it too often where abnormal concrete is used in the structure, and by time as the individual finish paying for the home has no value. These are things that must be addressed by the technical officers from the Ministry of Works to ensure whether the construction is done by the Ministry of Housing or whether it's done by the private individual. The quality of the technical assessment must follow the contractor to ensure that the person gets value for money. In the second instance, I am aware that in the committee stage, amendments will take place as to clauses 5, 6, and 2 of the Affordable Homes Bill. I already looked at the amendments, and I have no objection to these amendments. In its original state, clause 6 gave the minister, as far as I was concerned, too much power that it could almost compromise his position as minister. And so I think these amendments will help to ensure that that is sorted out. Madam President, I have another concern, which I offer words of caution to this administration in issuing and the approval of lots in New Providence, Grand Bahama, and the Family Islands. We on this side will be watching and monitoring the entire process to ensure that there is transparency in order that we are convinced that there is no political interference. Yeah, because when you give these ultimate powers to one minister, and we have no committee that work along with the minister, we need to make sure that there's no political interference, and these lots are awarded to individuals based on their qualification and has nothing to do with politics. It's very important to us because we want to make sure that Bahamians, irrespective of their political persuasion, have access to affordable lots and to own a piece of the pie. Madam President, my final concern is based on the notion that civil servants, members of the uniformed branches, as well as teachers and police officers, will be the first to benefit from these lots. I'm asking the government to generally extend this to the general population because while I was Minister for Grand Bahama and worked closely with the Ministry of Housing, we realized that at the Mortgage Corporation, there were hundreds of potential homeowners who were not government employees. who were desperately in need of a home of their own. And even though it's important that the government pre-national movement in the government to utilize their ingenuity and to incorporate the technical team surrounding the decision-making process to make sure that when legislation comes to this honorable place, it is not based on a group of individuals sitting around a table, but has a very strong technical opponent that a technical component that will definitely be able to ensure that when the legislation is applied, it will be effective on the ground. Madam President, I encourage members on the side office to seek out and, when necessary, follow the advice of experts in these matters who can prepare us more effectively in ensuring that we achieve equity and ownership for all Bahamians in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Madam President, also in the legislation, I realize that when an individual applies for one of these lots, the minister responsible have the right to reject the offer. But there's no appeals process that I've seen in the legislation. There's always the need for an appeals process in order to make sure that the legislation is balanced and no one individual have the power to accept or reject. I believe if an individual who applied for a service lot is rejected, I believe there has to be a protocol in place where the individuals could appeal for a second opinion. Madam President, with those few words, I would like to rest my case. I support two bills, and I look forward to the budget debate that is very close ahead of us. Thank you.
Madam
Chair
President,
recognizes Senator the Honorable Carl Bethel.
I'm not sure any other senators wish to contribute. Yes, okay, well then let me just clarify this point. The bill does not in any way seek to take any of the functions, powers, and authority presently vested in the Ministry and Minister of Housing as corporation sole in terms of the development of government land into government subdivisions or the determination of who can buy or not buy a lot. This bill has nothing to do with whether somebody applies for a lot under the existing procedures that have been governing and restricting and limiting the power of the minister for decades now in terms of determining who gets government lots. None of that is affected or touched by this bill. This bill is only concerned with this scenario. Someone has applied, lots have been designated as service lots. Somebody goes to the Ministry of Housing and puts in their application. They are approved, maybe over other applicants. They are then approved. That person then is able to apply for their lot to receive, in the designated subdivision, the exemptions, the financial exemptions governed by this act. A full exemption from customs duties and excise tax. And the corollary of that is they need to build their house in 2 years, 3 years maximum. That's all this act does. All of the defenses, all of the limitations of power, all of the rights to appeal, etc., that presently would govern the application for a government affordable home or service lot to the Ministry of Housing will continue. This act is purely concerned and only concerned with the power of the Minister of Finance in consultation with Housing, in consultation with the Minister responsible for Crown Land, to give the designation to the subdivision and the lot that allows for tax exemptions for construction purposes. So all of the other matters are not matters within the remit of this bill, and nowhere does this bill impinge on the power of the Minister of Housing to perform his usual duties. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Kwesi Thompson.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Again, Madam President, I don't intend to be very long, but I do want to record my support for what I believe will be a very important and significant piece of legislation, one of which I believe will bring direct assistance to many Bahamians. Madam President, before I get into my substantial contribution, I do wish to echo the condolences made by colleagues. It was what I believe a national tragedy that took place on Labor Day. It was a huge blow to the trade union community and trade union movement, and a huge blow really to the nation. That persons who were celebrating in unity and celebrating in a national togetherness. It is one of those marches that bring together everybody, whether you are, doesn't matter what political or religious or background that you might be. It is one of those that we all have some common ground to support, and to have a tragedy that took place really was devastating. And so I also echo those condolences and our thoughts and our prayers with the families as they go through their ordeal. We pray that the Lord would be with them and the Lord would comfort them during this time. Madam President, I also would beg your indulgence to just very briefly mention the upcoming Bahamas blockchain and cryptocurrency conference, which is about to take place in Grand Bahama on the 20th of June to the 22nd of June at the Grand Bucayan Convention Center. The government, along with the Grand Bahama Technology Hub Committee, intends on putting forward the Bahamas Blockchain and Cryptocurrency Conference 2018. We intend to have persons like Ms. Christina Roll, who is from the Security Commission. We also intend on having Mr. John Roll, who is the governor of the central bank. It will be opened by our prime minister. And we also have persons from the Financial Services Board. And this really brings together the government regulatory body as well as the private sector, who will come and speak to the Bahamas's role and what the Bahamas's framework is going to be with respect to blockchain technology and with respect to the cryptocurrency technology as well. It is an opportunity for us to really speak to the region and speak to the world that the Bahamas is wanting to be a major player, wanting to be a part of this blockchain technology that really is taking over the world, and also looking at the regulating persons who want to operate in this cryptocurrency space. And so we are inviting all Bahamians who are interested in this technology to come to Grand Bahama. One of the things that we also will have is persons who are in this industry and experts who are in this industry from around the world. So we have a Mr. Anthony Dialori, who is one of the, what Forbes magazine had indicated was one of their top 10 billionaires in cryptocurrency, and was the, and for anybody who sort of is interested in these kind of things, he is the co-founder of Ethereum, which really is a platform that most of the cryptocurrency technology operates on. And so we're looking forward to having him and having a number of other international speakers who are going to be there. So we are inviting persons to log on to the website, register onto the website. For Bahamians, the registration is free, and so we want you to come and be a part of this important conference. So thank you very much, Madam President, for that. I also just wanted to briefly make a comment on what Senator Darville had indicated as well, and you know, we also are very concerned with respect to the persons who are struggling with respect to paying their mortgage and going through foreclosure. You know, Madam President, just before I was appointed or had the opportunity to be appointed here, I was a practicing attorney, and also was sitting on the other side in the Senate. But as a practicing attorney, defending persons when we were in opposition, when the Progressive Liberal Party was in government, defending many persons who were in the same spot with respect to this foreclosure, banks that in my view, in my personal view, were very difficult and took very hard-line stances with a number of struggling persons. And so we did our best as lawyers to fight for those persons. And you know, Senator Darville also indicated about the Homeowners Protection Bill, and I was on that other side advocating for them to complete the Homeowners Protection Bill, because I believed that the Homeowners Protection Bill was needed, was required to be able to give the ordinary person at least some ability to fight against these large banks, predators in some instances, and it is a part of this government's manifesto. So it is a part of this government's plan to continue to deal with the protection of homeowners against these banks who are hell-bent on foreclosing, particularly in circumstances where persons are struggling and they're sick and for no fault of their own are finding themselves in difficult positions. You know, I could recall also, and I'm sure this wasn't anyone in here or any of the other the members of the opposition, but you know, one of the things that we found very difficult when we were in opposition was the fact that you had a government at that time who was advocating for the mortgage relief program, but in the same breath they were taking persons to court through the mortgage corporation and were getting court orders to evict persons from their houses in Grand Bahama. And the reason why I can say that is I was the lawyer who was defending these persons against the mortgage corporation. Now, thankfully, we were able to advocate and to at least convince the government at that time that you shouldn't be evicting these persons from their homes, and they eventually relented in not continuing to pursue that line. But it was a very difficult time for those persons who had to be drawn before the court and who had to pay legal expenses and who had to be taken through the ropes of and the threat of you know, their houses being taken away from them on the one hand, and on the other hand here, that the government wants to put in place a mortgage relief protection program. And I accept what Senator Davis said, but none that I'm aware of that they were actually evicted. I am aware that a number of them had court orders to be evicted, and so there were a number of them who had court orders to be evicted. No, those persons I can recall, clients of mine who had, and this is public record, so I'm not unveiling anything that is not in the public domain, but where court orders were obtained against those persons. But as I said, thankfully, none have been evicted, and they relented from that position. But I just make the point that we on this side, Madam President, are very concerned as well about those persons who are facing those kinds of challenges, and it is a part of our agenda to deal with protection of those homeowners. So, Madam President, today the government fulfills another important campaign commitment to provide access to affordable homes for Bahamians. Providing housing is a basic need that governments must fulfill for their people. There really is no more a prouder moment for a family than to own their own home. It must have been about 10 years for me, or more than 10 years, when I first was able to own my home. Well, I own it with the bank. The bank owned most of it, but I was very pleased to be able to see that there is a conveyance in my name and my wife's name, and to be proud of the fact that we have a piece of the rock. And so this is one that, again, I'm very pleased of, to be able to offer and support other persons being able to fulfill that same dream. And it is a dream for most Bahamian families. It is a dream to own their own home. This will also become one of the, and homes really is the largest, or sometimes one of the largest single investments that most Bahamians will have. The manifesto, Madam President, of the Free National Movement says this, that the FNM will continue the development of a new government housing subdivision to address the unmet demand for affordable housing. This bill, however, goes further than most government programs, which only provide you with the option to have the house built by a government-appointed contractor and a mortgage corporation loan. So as was stated, previous governments have continued that program where it is a sort of a one-stop shop where you go to the Ministry of Housing and you can get a loan and you can get the house built all in one, which is good. It has its challenges, but it's good. The government, in this case, is forward-thinking and seeks to provide help to those who need it most and provide the most effective means of assisting our people. The price of land has been a challenge for most young families, particularly in New Providence and some places in the Family Islands. This bill, without question, provides land and some of the most affordable rates being offered in today's market. The Prime Minister has announced property being made available in the range of $30,000 per lot, which would really give any middle-class family the ability to acquire the land. The proposed legislation will also pass on tremendous savings to homeowners. So the average lot that will be a possible value of maybe $100,000 can now be sold at approximately $30,000. This is an aspect that has really not been addressed previously. Secondly, Madam President, this also gives the family the flexibility to build a house within a 2 to 3 year period. And I know something about this because there are some who are able to go to the bank and in one shot get the land, get a mortgage for the house, and go ahead and have the house completed in one shot. There are some of us who was able to go to the bank and get the land. And then we do what we call bill out of pocket. And so we go ahead and get somebody to clear the land down for us. And we go ahead and get somebody to do the footing. And we go ahead to get somebody to pour the footing. And we go ahead to get somebody to do the starter blocks and to block up. And then to get all of the other things, the smaller things that you might get before you get to the bell course and so on. And many Bahamians do this. And they do this in a way where it saves them money in terms of being able to borrow more money if you had to go and build a house in one shot. So as I see this bill, it does give the Bahamian family the opportunity to actually benefit from a government program, but also they have the opportunity to take advantage where they can build out of pocket for a period of time until they're able to go to the bank to get a loan for the complete amount. It does actually save you money by doing it in that route. And also, Madam President, thirdly, and most significantly, is the benefit of obtaining duty-free materials to build your house. So you have the ability of getting affordable land, you have the flexibility in terms of building, but you also have the most important and significant benefit of obtaining the duty-free exemption for building materials. This is a huge benefit, which will allow families to build over time at a cheaper cost, which can allow them to put this extra money to furniture, allow them to put the extra money to landscaping, to allow them to put the extra money to build a wall, a fence, or to build something that they would not have the ability to do had they have to pay the duty on all of those materials. It cannot be denied that Bahamians will benefit directly from these duty-free concessions. Certain material for home building will also be duty-free, so we will also see where things like solar panel kits will become duty-free, which will also allow persons to benefit from and encourage renewable energy users in this area as well. Well, the kits, I think certain parts of them are duty-free, but they're putting together where if you buy it as a kit now, it's in this budget where they're allowing us to do it. And so, Madam President, it also envisions that this will provide a boost to the construction industry, which will also directly go to help the economy. So, Madam President, I support this, and I agree that this really is a landmark piece of legislation, which, you know, we are always called upon to help people directly. We are all called upon to do things that people will feel and see and touch. And Madam President, today is a day where we can say that what we are doing here is going to directly help persons. It is going to directly give them some assistance that they can feel, they can see, and they can touch. So, Madam President, I commend the Prime Minister for putting forward this view and putting forward this idea. I commend my colleagues for being able to put this in the form of a legislation, and I also commend the opposition for joining with us in supporting this important piece of legislation. So thank you very much, Madam President.
As many The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Clay Sweeting.
Yes, we're gonna build in Spanish Vale as well, on Russell Island.
General, you know. Madam President, it is indeed an honor to be here today to speak on behalf and represent the people of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. I would also like to express my condolences and my sentiments, along with other senators, to the family of the ones that perished in the Labor Day parade. Actually, one of those hails from Hatchet Bay, from Eleuthero, from my good friend Claudius Bethel. So I express to them and their family my condolences and my prayers. We come here today to discuss the Electricity Amendment Bill 2018 and the Access to Affordable Homes Bill. I think we've basically spoke a lot about the meat and length of these bills, and along with my colleagues, I support both bills. But with the Electricity Amendment Bill, Madam President, I don't expect to spend much time on it, as we do support it. The idea of this legislation is to provide BPR with approval to borrow funds or receive approval for an overdraft with having to deal with having not to deal with the red tape that may occur with a corporation when it needs immediate access to funding. I'm a businessman, and I understand that there may be times when a business needs access to capital for whatever reason. There may be a situation like what happened in Abaco a few months back and may need immediate attention. Even though this is owned by the government, it must still operate properly in an efficient and transparent manner. The government, at the end of the day, will be held accountable for it. Madam President, when it comes to the Access to Affordable Homes Act, first of all, let me state that I support initiatives that would empower Bahamians and help them to make a step up in life. Every Bahamian would like to own a piece of the rock, like to say, and the government must find ways to create easier avenues for Bahamian home ownership. It isn't easy becoming a homeowner in this country, Madam President. Even in communities where you would think it would be a non-issue, it is. In my opinion, we need to find ways to lengthen the burden off of the cost of purchasing homes and land initially, by helping people who, because of rising land prices, have been unable to obtain suitable housing at an affordable price, and maintaining a stable economy by preventing out-migration of residents, especially in the Family Islands. The Prime Minister has mentioned that lots would be sold at around $30,000, which is supposedly a good deal. But, Madam President, a good deal doesn't matter if you cannot acquire the money to take advantage of it. At the last Senate debate, one or two of the senators spoke about the frustration of banking in this country. I deal with banks often, and it does not matter if you have been a client for 20 years or 6 months. Banking in the Bahamas, as we know it, is just difficult. The way persons in this country once were served by banks is no more. We have spoken on numerous occasions in this place about banking today and dealing with banks and how they have a hold on, it seems, parts of our economy. Banks today are not the banks of years before, when your money in the bank actually received interest, or access to a mortgage was almost as simple as walking in and applying. We must find ways to make financing more available or cheaper. That is done through lower down payment to mortgages, easier credit and low interest rates, and access to capital. You know, I was curious when I was going over this bill, and I said I wanted to see actually how many applications in this country were actually approved by the bank. So I did some research, and I found that in the first quarter of this year, the mortgage loan approval rates was slashed in half to 42.6% in just 2.5 years prior. So, you know, this highlights that the commercial bank retreat from the vital Bahamian housing market in our country is quite evident. And this data was produced by the Central Bank of the Bahamas, their research department. You know, and it also shows in the same research that 1
out of every 2 mortgage loan applications is only being approved, amid lender reluctance to take on greater exposure to the sector. The data accompanying the central bank's December 2017 development report revealed that mortgage loan approval rates were around 80 to 90% as recently as 2015 second quarter, meaning applicants enjoyed the same success ratio as counterparts applying for consumer and commercial loans. Let's just face it, it is just difficult to borrow money. You almost have to have the same amount of money in the bank that you want to borrow. In my opinion, even though this bill will have some benefit and the government's plan to assist people across this country is only a piece of the rock, an even greater number would benefit if the government could find ways to provide access to inexpensive turnkey homes as well. Under the prior administration, the Bahamas Mortgage Corporation and the Ministry of Housing had begun investigating new and green construction methods to bring prices down while raising the quality of the low-cost homes. The government can negotiate lesser costs to build 300 homes than 300 individuals can negotiating on their own. The average Bahamian who needs extra help in achieving the Bahamian dream of home ownership most likely will not benefit from this program. Financing for the land and additional financing for materials and construction will not be easy to obtain. I have a friend who borrowed money to purchase a piece of property. Then after he had the property, he added to the mortgage to build a home, duty-free exempt at the time, but now he cannot fulfill his payment responsibilities and may lose his home because even though he qualified to borrow the money, at the end of the day, the home costs him much more than he had originally budgeted. But when you purchase a home turnkey, there are or should not be any hidden costs. Home ownership seems to be out of reach for many Bahamians, but for those fortunate enough to acquire a loan, they may also soon find themselves in financial problems. Madam President, I had some reservations initially about the authoritative power provided to the minister in regards to approval for land. I see that there's been some amendments to that, but I agree with the terms and process being crystal clear and independent of the political process. In Massachusetts and the USA, they have a similar legislation, but they have a planning board that is designated with a special permit of granting authority for all affordable housing development applications under law, which streamlines the process. Madam President, we must also consider the uniqueness of the family islands such as Eleuthera, north and south. There is a lot of crown land available there, some of the nicest property you could ever dream of building on. And people would love access to this land. So I hope that Eleuthera was on their mind when they put together this legislation. But the issue there is that once people from Eleuthera, they get access to this property, some start building homes, but they cannot afford to finish construction, and eventually they become just monuments in the bush. So it would not make a lot of common sense to sell lots to individuals in certain subdivisions to have subdivisions full of halfway constructed homes. There must be some provisions put in place to prevent this, to ensure persons who can afford to build a home do not suffer value loss because of surrounding properties. Madam President, the people with the greatest housing needs are very low-income households that cannot afford to pay for decent quality units. Most of these households are renters, but the Bahamas government housing policies should be designed to encourage ownership. The basic problem in our country is affordability gap between what poor households can afford to pay for housing at some standard level, say 30% of income, and what it costs to occupy a decent quality home as defined by middle class standards. Most housing built today that is called affordable is too costly for low income households, but is affordable to working class or moderate income households. The affordability gap for these households still exists. All the institutions related to housing, such as builders, mortgage lenders, realtors, insurers, and all homeowners have invested in existing housing and want their assets to rise in value. That goal is certainly understandable, and there is nothing wrong with it, but it also has an unfortunate impact on prevailing attitudes toward creating new low-cost housing in this country. Madam President, I also had another reservation when it comes to the importation of duty-free items for these homes that was approved. The Attorney General spoke to that effect in regards of purchasing locally, because I don't think that businesses in this country should be at a disadvantage because persons would import stuff duty-free. I heard the Attorney General speak about that when you go to purchase domestically, that they would just deduct the duty off of. But being in business, you know, I just would, when the Attorney General wraps up, would like some clarification, because being in business, I know if I import a pallet of plywood and I already paid my duty as a business owner, my money's tied up. So when the individual comes, and I don't know if the Attorney General said there'll be some payback as credit in regards to importation or things that.
Right here,
Okay, so I just wanted, because as a business owner, it's hard enough to run business in this country, and as a business owner, we need to ensure that provisions are made, that we do not choke the life out of the business community in this country. So I just want to just make that point so that you could, you know, fix up the Bay people with the answer afterwards.
The business community remind them what the truth of this matter is. Facts are. We are business friendly. Y'all were business unfriendly.
No. If you come to, no, I just want to ensure that the Attorney General has an answer. I don't want to be tied him up too much.
Got it immediately, right here.
Well, I'm about to wrap up anyhow. So, Madam President, I also understand that the government is trying to get out of the construction business, but a crucial ingredient in any legislation or any new initiative is analyzing, consulting, and ensuring that this is the correct avenue to take. The Progressive Liberal Party believes in economic empowerment and empowerment through home ownership. I live on an island where all young men were trained from a young age that the first investment you make is to buy a piece of property, then you save up and you build your home. Times have changed, the community has struggled, but the dream and values lives on. It is a Bahamian dream to own your own home, own your own house, something that you can call a home, and I encourage all Bahamians in this endeavor. In some communities, such as Harbor Island, foreigners have caused a property to become overpriced for locals to purchase. So there is a lesson to be learned there as well. Madam President, we on this side would like to ensure that we do what we can to create and assist in developing affordable housing for hard-working Bahamians. We would like to break the gridlock and see the empowerment of Bahamians in Eleuthera, in Abaco, Inagua, Andros, and all family islands, not just Nassau. Madam President, I thank you for your time. May God bless the people, and may God bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Thank you.
As many,
Okay, I'll just do a quick wrap up, very quick.
Chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Carl Bethel.
Thank you, Madam President. Very quick, it's really only to answer the question from Senator. Look, let me say.
Sweeting.
No. I was trying to say whether my Sigillian senator or my Spanish Belgian senator, Clay Sweeting. Listen, Senator, the FNM is business friendly. Members opposite, business unfriendly. Now the answer is very clear. I would have to say this, that what will happen is that they would get a tax credit. As a result of the depredations and wastage of the last administration, you know, cash is not an easy thing to have in government these days. But what is the practice, has been even under the former government, is that a credit is given. So the next time that they bring in and they have to pay the customs duty, whatever they've lost is taken out of the bill on the current customs duty. And this is the way finance interacts with the business community in any number of ways. It rather than having actual refunds, will give you a credit on future activity. And so that is the most likely and effective way that the businesses will be compensated. What essentially it affects is that it enables the business to, in a sense, convert the obligation owed by the government to them into ready cash, because the next time they have to spend, they take into account and set off the debt and they keep that money. And that's how it really works in practice.
Thank
Yes.
you.
The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Clay Sweeting.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So what I'd like you to do is possibly also look at the Family Island Encouragement Act, which was initially very well implemented.
Yeah.
But at the same token, the same structure could also be used with the businesses in the Family Islands that are at a disadvantage. Construction is on the rise, but the issue was that the local businesses cannot compete with importing duty-free items. So possibly the same model could also be used under that as well.
Well, you know, that is an excellent suggestion, and it was one that I will take up with the draftspersons and the government forthwith. Let me say something. You know, the way we legislate in the FNM, I can tell you now that no bill is brought to Parliament, and this is the insistence of the PM. The whole cabinet sits down and goes line by line through every bill. And no matter how, and there is an engagement. And this legislative innovation to actually formally put in writing this thing, I mean, it's been going on for a little while in practice. People who get exemptions under the hurricane, the excise, the exigencies that are habitually issued under hurricanes, after a hurricane, people have been using the exigency powers to go and they actually get these deductions from local hardware and retail stores. And I told you about the credit arrangements. Once the receipts are produced and shown, they're then able to claim a credit on their next imports. It's at these hardware stores. Now, that has been, in practice, what has been happening. The unique thing is now to express it in legislation. Having done that, it kind of like it's like a step forward in the culture of legislation, which means now we have to look back at everything to make sure everything is at this higher level now of responsiveness to the needs of the business community and putting Bahamians on a level playing field within the wording of the statute. So I thank you for the suggestion that we look at existing exemption legislation and find a way to, in the very wording of these acts, put the Bahamian business person on a level playing field with Miami. In fact, and another example, and this has come up in the budget debate, this will come up in the budget debate, as to why the government determined that it would provide to Bahamian retailers a specific exemption to bring in clothing and fabrics and shoes duty-free. But it didn't just say clothing, fabric, and shoes are duty-free. Specifically, it was done because if you said clothing and shoes are duty-free, everybody be on Amazon right away, landing it here with FedEx, and wouldn't have to pay any duty on all of the high fashion shoes. Whereas, if you say that the retailer is able to land them duty-free, you empower your own bricks and mortar stores here in the province. So, I commend the Minister of Finance for what I think is a bold step in legislating in a way that is designed to protect the vital interests of the commercial sector in this country. And that too is an advance in the culture of our legislation, our law passing, practical, the things we do ordinarily when crafting bills. That's another advance. And that is something that, again, you can see repeated And what we need to do now is to look back at other areas as well on that to see how the advancement made on that one piece of legislation in the Tariff Act can be repeated in other areas. And so when we give an exemption, let's give it in a way that puts Bahamian retailers and businesses on the same level playing field as Miami and Dade County and Fort Lauderdale and West Palm Beach. On that note, Madam President, I commend these bills to yourselves, and I now move, if I may obtain a seconder, that the Access to Affordable Homes Bill be read a second time and committed. Yes. I finished my
Second.
thing.
But you were supposed to sit down. I was supposed to say as many as.
No, I've now put the motion, and I get a seconder, and then you can do that. You a seconder? Okay, done.
As many as. The question is that the following bill be read a second time and committed. A bill for an act to promote greater access to affordable homes through the grant of certain exemptions for the building of dwelling homes on service lots within a government-owned subdivision. As many are in favor of the bill being read a second time would say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Order that the bill be read a second time and committed. Further second reading and committal of bills.
Madam President, I beg leave to move that a bill for an act to amend the Electricity Act be read a second time and committed, if I may obtain a seconder.
Madam President, I second.
The bill for an act to amend the Electricity Act. As many are in favor of the bill being read a second time would say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Order that the bill be read a second time and committed. Further second reading and committal of bills.
No further second readings. Madam President, I beg leave to move that the Senate do now resolve itself into a committee of the whole with Senator the Honorable Renard Henfield in the chair. If I may obtain a seconder.
I second, Madam.
It has been moved and seconded that the Senate resolve itself into the committee of the whole with Senator Renard Henfield in the chair. As many are in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The Senate will now resolve itself into the committee of the whole with Senator the Honorable Renard Henfield in the chair.
It's appropriate. You don't have to, but she's such a lovely lady.
Committee of the Whole.
M&E has been damaged. I need the M&E bill too. M&E, Multinational Enterprises, Financial Reporting Bill. It's in committee. No amendments, though. Yeah, we do in the order in which they got here. While he's doing that, we'll move the bills we have, but we need to have the multinational. You have it? Okay. We have to move the amendments as well? No. This is it, yeah. No amendments were made to this, right? No. The minutes didn't say without amendment. It needs to say that. No, it was put in the committee. There were no amendments made. Okay, fine. Mr. Chairman, the first bill we'll deal with is the Multinational Entities Financial Reporting Bill. I beg leave to move that the long title of the bill be accepted. Agreed.
Is there a seconder?
Mr. Chair, I second.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill be, the long title of the bill be agreed.
As many?
As many will say, as many as in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The long title of the bill has been agreed.
Mr. President, I beg leave to move that the short title and commencement of the bill be agreed.
Mr. Chair, I second.
It has been moved and seconded that the short title of the bill be agreed
And commencement.
and commencement.
And commencement. A short, I went by the rubric. Short title.
It is being moved and agreed that the short title of the bill be agreed. As many are in favor, will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The short title of the bill has been agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I beg leave to move that clauses 1 through, I'm telling you now, yeah, through 22 be agreed.
Is there
Mr.
a
Chair, I
second?
second.
It has been moved and seconded that clause 2 through 22 be agreed. Those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Clauses 2 through 22 have been agreed.
Yes. I know. Mr. Chairman, I beg leave to move that the schedule be to the bill be agreed. And that is reference from section 5.2. Be agreed.
Is there a seconder?
Mr. Chairman, I second.
It has been moved and agreed that the schedule be agreed. Those in favor shall say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The schedule of the bill has been agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I beg leave to move that the bill in its entirety be agreed.
Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, I second.
It has been moved and agreed that the schedule of the bill has been agreed in its entirety. Those in favor shall say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The bill as a whole has been agreed.
Excellent. Further third reading. Further.
Are there any further readings?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I beg leave to move that the long title to the Access to Affordable Homes Bill be agreed.
Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, I second.
It has been moved and agreed that the long title of the bill be agreed. Those in favor shall say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay.
Second, short title. Okay.
The ayes have it. The long title of the bill has been agreed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I beg leave to move that the short title to the bill be agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I second.
It has been moved and seconded that the short title of the bill be agreed. Those in favor shall say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The short title of the bill has been agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I beg leave to move that section 2 of the bill be agreed. If I may obtain a second.
Mr. Chairman, I second.
Okay, good.
Yeah, go on. Yeah, move.
Go ahead.
Yeah. As many.
As many?
Mr. Chair, I beg leave to move the following amendment to Clause 2. Amendment, sorry, to Clause 2A. Insert in the appropriate alphabetical order the following new definition. Exemption means full exemption from customs duty and excise taxes. B, in the definition of subdivision, delete the word a and substitute the words "and approved."
Mr. Chairman, I second.
Is there a second?
I rise to second.
Right.
It has been moved and seconded that Clause 2 of the bill be amended as that Clause 2 of the bill be amended as read. As many? As are in favor shall say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed shall say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 2 of the bill shall be agreed, is agreed as amended.
Mr. Chairman, I beg leave to move that clauses 3 and 4 of the bill be agreed.
Is there a second?
I rise to second.
It has been moved and agreed that Clause 3 and 4 of the bill be agreed. Those in favor shall say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed shall say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 3 and 4 of the bill have been agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I beg leave to move that clause 5 of the bill be agreed.
Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, I second.
It has been moved and agreed that Clause 5 of the bill, as many?
Please put the question.
It has been moved that Clause 5 of the bill be agreed. As many?
Mr. Chair, I beg leave to move the following amendment to Clause 5. Insert immediately before the word owner, the word beneficial. If I may get a second.
Mr. Chair, I rise to second.
It has been moved and agreed that Clause 5 of the bill, it has been moved and seconded that Clause 5 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many in favor shall say aye. And all those opposed shall say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 5 of the bill is agreed as amended.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I beg leave to move that Clause 6 of the bill be agreed.
Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, I second.
It has been moved that Clause 6 of the bill be agreed. As many?
Mr. Chair, I beg leave to move the following amendment to Clause 6. In A, delete subclause 1 and substitute as follows. Subclause 1, where the minister is satisfied that an application relates to a designated subdivision, the minister shall grant the approval of the application subject to the provisions of this Act. B, subclause 2, delete the words Section 7 and substitute the words Section 7, subclause 1. If I may get a second.
Rise to second.
It has been moved and seconded that Clause 6 of the bill be amended. Those in favor shall say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Clause 6 of the bill has been agreed as amended.
Mr. President, I beg leave to move sorry, Mr. Chairman. I agree. I move. Don't agree. I move that Clause 7 of the bill be agreed.
Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, I second.
It has been moved and seconded that Clause 7 of the bill be agreed. As many?
Mr. Chair, I beg leave to move the following amendment to Clause 7. A, delete subclause 1 and substitute as follows. Subclause 1, notwithstanding anything to the contrary in any other law and subject to the other provisions of this Act and to any terms and conditions under which an approval was granted, an approved applicant shall in respect of a service lot be entitled to enjoy exemption from customs duty and excise tax in respect of the import or domestic purchase of any and all materials necessary for the construction of a dwelling home, which shall be completed within a period of 2 years from the date of the approval by the minister. And B, delete subclause 4. If I may get a second.
I rise to second.
It has been moved and seconded that Clause 7 of the bill be agreed as amended. Those in favor shall say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed shall say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 7 of the bill has been agreed as amended.
Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, I beg leave to move that Clause 8 of the bill be agreed.
Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, I second.
As many? It has been moved and seconded that Clause 8 of the bill be agreed. As many?
Mr. Chair, I beg leave to move the following amendment to Clause 8. A, insert immediately after the words the Bahamas, the words or purchased domestically. And B, delete the words of finance. If I may get a second.
I rise to second.
It has been moved and seconded that Clause 8 of the bill be agreed as amended. Those in favor shall say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed shall say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 8 of the bill has been agreed as amended.
Mr. Chairman, I beg leave to move that clause 9 of the bill be agreed.
Is there a
Mr.
second?
Chairman, I rise to second.
It has been moved and seconded that clause 9 of the bill be agreed. As many as in favor shall say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Clause 9 of the bill is agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I beg leave to move that clause 10 of the bill be agreed.
Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, I rise to second.
It has been moved and seconded that clause 10 of the bill be agreed. As many?
Mr. Chairman, I beg leave to move the following amendment to clause 10A. In subclause 1, delete the word of where it first appears and substitute the words not exceeding. B. In subclause 3, delete subparagraph B and substitute as follows. B. An order directing payment to a public body of the value of any property obtained contrary to the provisions of this act. If I may get a second.
I rise to second.
It is being moved and seconded that clause 10 of the bill be agreed as amended. Those in favor shall say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Clause 10 of the bill has been agreed as amended.
Mr. Chairman, I beg leave to move that clause 11 of the bill be agreed.
Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, I rise to second.
It has been moved and seconded that clause 11 of the bill be agreed. Those in favor shall say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed shall say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 11 of the bill is agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I beg leave to move that the schedule, which is issued under Section 5 of the bill, be agreed.
Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, I rise to second.
It has been moved and seconded that the schedule of the bill be agreed. As many?
Mr. Chair, I beg leave to move the following amendment to the schedule. A. Delete the words NIB or other ID number and substitute the words Bahamian passport or government-issued ID number. B. In paragraph A, delete the words NIB card or other and substitute the words Bahamian passport or other. C. Insert immediately after paragraph B the following new paragraph C. C. With respect to the description of the construction, any supporting invoice or quotation. If I may obtain a second.
I rise to second.
It has been moved and seconded that the schedule of the bill be agreed as amended. Those in favor shall say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The schedule of the bill has been agreed as amended.
Mr. Chairman, I beg leave to move that the bill in its entirety be accepted.
Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, I rise to second.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill in its entirety be agreed. Those in favor shall say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The bill as a whole has been agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I beg leave to move that the long title of a bill for an act to amend the Electricity Act be agreed.
Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, I rise to second.
It has been moved and seconded that the long title of the bill be agreed. Those in favor shall say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The long title of the bill has been agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I beg leave to move that clauses 2...
Short title.
Oh, sorry. That the short title and commencement be agreed.
Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, I rise to second.
It has been moved and seconded that the short title and commencement of the bill be agreed. Those in favor shall say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The short title and commencement of the bill have been agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I beg leave to move that sections 2 and 3 of the bill be agreed.
Is there a second?
Is there a
Mr.
second?
Chairman, I rise to second.
It has been moved and seconded that sections 2 and 3 of the bill be agreed. Those in favor shall say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed shall say nay. The ayes have it. Sections 2 and 3 of the bill have been agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I beg leave to move that the bill in its entirety be agreed.
Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, I second.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill in its entirety be agreed. Those in favor shall say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The bill in its entirety has been agreed.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I beg leave to move that the President do
The multinational.
No, we dealt with the multinational.
first one.
We started with multinational, then we did access to affordable homes, and we've just finished electricity. So I now beg to move that the Madam President to resume her chair. If I may
Second.
obtain a seconder.
Second? Okay, it has been moved and agreed that the President now take the chair. Those in favor shall say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. The President shall take the chair.
Madam President, I beg leave to report that the committee has gone through the 3 bills, having made amendments to one of the bills, and the electricity amendment.
Access to affordable homes.
Having made amendments to the access to affordable homes bill. And no amendments to the electricity bill and the multinationals bill.
Honorable Senators, the chairman of the Committee of the Whole has reported that the committee has gone through 3 bills, having made amendments to the affordable homes, to the access to affordable homes bill. No other amendments were made to the electricity amendment or the multinational bill, entities bill. The third reading and passing of bills.
Madam President, I beg leave to move for the third reading and passing of the Multinational Entities Financial Reporting Bill of 2018, if I may obtain a seconder.
Madam President, I rise to second.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a third time and passed. A bill for an act to promote greater access to affordable homes through the grant of certain exemptions for the building of dwelling homes on serviced lots within a government-owned subdivision. As many are in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Order that the bill be read a third time and passed.
A bill for an act to provide for country-by-country holding of profit and losses attributed to entities incorporated for residents.
Multinational entities is the, it's multinational, yeah, the wrong title. Yes, good. Excellent.
Further third readings? No.
No,
Yeah.
now the bill passed. Yes,
Order that the bill... You're all already out of order here.
Yeah.
Order that the bill do now pass and the title thereof declared to be Multinational Entities Financial Reporting Act 2018. Further third readings.
Madam President, I beg leave to move for the third reading and passage of the Access to Affordable Homes Bill of 2018, if I may obtain a seconder.
Madam President, I rise to second.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a third time and passed. A bill for an act to promote greater access to affordable homes through the grant of certain exemptions for the building of dwelling homes on service lots within a government-owned subdivision. As many are in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Order that the bill be read a third time and passed.
Bill for an act to promote greater access to affordable homes through the grant of certain exemptions
Order that the bill do now pass and the title thereof declared to be Access to Affordable Homes Act 2018. Further third readings.
Thank you, Madam President. I beg leave to move for the third reading and passage of the Electricity Amendment Number 2 Bill of 2018. If I may obtain a second.
Madam President, I rise to second.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a third time and passed, a bill for an act to amend the Electricity Act. As many are in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Order that the bill be read a third time and passed. Order that this bill do now pass and the title thereof declared to be Electricity Amendment Number 2 Act 2018. Further third readings.
No further third readings, Madam President.
I do now order the clerk to take the bills passed today to the Speaker and acquaint him that the Senate has consented to the same with amendments.
Thank you, Madam President.
Consideration of House amendments,
None.
resolutions,
None.
discharge of select committees,
None.
notices for future meetings.
Madam President, I beg leave to renew all matters on the order paper reflecting government business and wish to give notice that that the motion will be moved at the appropriate time for the Senate to be adjourned to next Friday, next Friday. Give me the date. Ask me if I'm sure about that. Don't speak on Slack, brother. The 15th day of June at 10 a.m. in the morning. If I, pardon me? 10 a.m. in the morning. Just to make it clear what our intent is. There are a number of bills that were tabled that are not budget bills. Because of the comprehensive scope of the budget debate and the urgency to address in depth many burning issues associated with it, was determined to start the budget debate within a week, unusually, of the actual communication to give as much time as possible to Parliament to fully debate and explore all of the issues, which means an aggressive schedule. This week we saw that the House of Assembly met on Monday, met on Wednesday, Thursday. That leaves only Friday free. The same aggressive and expansive schedule of debate is scheduled for next week. Rather than for the Senate to sit idly by with a stack of bills accumulating, it was felt, in consultation with the leader opposite, that we could move some of these bills so that we ourselves could perform our true function of being a legislature and pass some bills while our colleagues deal with other matters, which we will attend to as soon as they're finished. And so the thinking is we dealt with these bills today, and the other outstanding bill is the Interception of Communications Bill, which we hope to deal with and to complete and pass next Friday. After that, it is anticipated that the government's budget debate in the other place will end on Monday the 18th. The budget debate in this place will commence, all things being equal and no slippage in terms of time, on the 20th, Wednesday the 20th of June, 10 o'clock in the morning. So those are the forward plans and thinking of what we're trying to achieve. So I thank you, Madam President.
Orders for clerk?
Yeah, you're still on notices.
I'm sorry.
yeah.
Chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Michael
I would
Darbo.
like to renew notices on behalf of the opposition. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Orders for clerk? Adjournment.
Madam President, I beg leave to move that the Senate on its rising be adjourned to Friday, the 15th day of June at 10 a.m. in the morning. If I may obtain a seconder.
Madam President, rise to second.
It has been moved and seconded that the business of the Senate be adjourned. As many are in favor be adjourned to Friday, June 15th at 10 a.m. As many are in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The business of the Senate is now adjourned to Friday, June 15th, 10 a.m.
Madam
Final
President.
adjournment.
Sorry. Madam President, I move that the Senate be now adjourned.